Day 216 of the Ukrainian war map, also known as Russia's violent land-grabbing attempts in Ukraine. Jozzy here, and today is another quick update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine today. And as always, I like to start off with those military losses on the Russian side. So the military personnel, as we can see here, in the last 24-hour reporting period is an additional 550. So at 57,750 today. We'll just take a quick look at the Russian hardware losses as well. So a whopping 24 armored combat vehicles. Then in terms of tanks, a massive 16. Artillery, a huge 19, and aircraft 1. Now, I won't show you my homegrown hobby today. It's getting a bit of a beta update, if you will, but you can certainly rest assured that you'll see all of that more in the future again as well. Now, we'll move across to the war map here, and we might start out in the Belgorod region, the oblast here, where there's a photo of the air defense missile system was active over the Belgorod region today, or in the last 24 hours at least. So it appears that perhaps Ukraine is continuing to take out some military installations of some description just over their border. So now into the Kharkiv Oblast region, where there has certainly been some massive artillery duels that are underway in the north of the region here. So for instance, we might need to zoom in here because the battlefield really does seem to be changing. Now, for instance, in the Radkivsky settlement there, we can see that that's been recently liberated there as well, and said to be in full true Ukrainian control now. Now, I just might swing up back a little bit here. So we all know Kupiansk, and we've got east and east of Kupiansk there, where a key strategic settlement on the Russian side, so Petropavlivka, is actually now seemingly under Ukrainian control as well. Now, we can see it's in the grey zone right now, but it is, as you can see, pushing forward across and effectively pushing the Russians out of there. So not blue liberated, but I'm sure in the next 24 hours we may see that it is blue and liberated on this map here. So this is very good to see. This is very good news. And we've even got some more reports of it's a town here, so Borivka right there. Borova. Where based on this map you can see that it is starting to be overtaken or liberated by the Ukrainian forces there, but some early reports suggest that it has also been taken there as well. And just for some photos, I have a photo here of Ukrainian forces destroying a Russian 2A65 Mr. B, so a Mr. B artillery battery outside of Tabivka. So that is actually a little bit north right there, just on the border to Luhansk, the Luhansk Oblast. So getting really close to that in terms of the exchange of artillery and the duels there for sure. Oh, and just lastly, in terms of photos, I've got a photo here of a BGM-71 TOW anti-tank missile system or guided missile system in the Kharkiv Oblast. So in August, last month, the US announced that 1,500 TOWs would be supplied to the Ukrainian armed forces, and it appears the deal may have included some carrier vehicles where they can be mounted on as well. So just to give you a bit of a better idea of what TOWs are, the TOW ATGMs, they are tube-launched, optically tracked and wire-guided missile systems, anti-tank missile systems there. Now, they can either be mounted on a tripod launch tube or installed on top of vehicles. Now, you've probably heard of the well-known Javelin anti-tank guided missile systems. Actually, here's a quick video I found earlier of the Estonian PM. She's just learning how to use one. Very, very cool. But really, all in all, the TOW ATGMs, as opposed to the Javelin ATGMs, Consider them to be brothers of sorts for what they're designed to do. Obviously, tank busters, and both produced in the United States. Now, unlike the Javelin missile systems, it's resistant to jamming or electronic warfare. It's got a little really thin wire that changes coordinates down the line. These things go up to 3,000 or 4,000 kilometers, or about 2,500, 3,000 miles, that sort of thing there. I would generally consider the Javelins to be really well suited to taking out Russian tanks. But the TOW missile systems, they may have their place on the battlefield. Perhaps Russia has a lot of electronic warfare or jamming systems up their sleeves. One of the few things they may have a lot of apart from artillery shells, and are using them stationed on a tank, for instance. And this would be something that would counteract that setup that the Russian forces have. Although, having said that, I don't think that the Russians have a lot of almost anything except for artillery shells. So I would be surprised if the Ukrainians even really need this particular technology. Now, after a bit of a spiel from me there, let's move down to the Donbas region, the ever-contested Donbas, where locals confirm that Novoselivka, right there, is under Ukrainian control. So that's really bright and good to see there. We see movement in that direction there, but it doesn't actually show it on this map as yet. Now, as for Lyman, or Lehman, not far down there, you can see the two oinky pigs truly getting surrounded more and more. And in fact, we've got some reports saying that Lehman, or the Russian-occupied area of Lehman here, is in fact getting attacked from multiple directions from the Ukrainian armed forces. And this is really what an encirclement looks like. Then we'll move out a bit, and in Sloviansk, not exactly the front line, but Russia does continue to shell it from maybe up to 30, 40 miles away, which is about 44 kilometers, let's say, very basically there. And there's been some fires after some Russian shelling in Sloviansk there as well. Now, perhaps more generally, Russian units, including the Wagner group, on the Russian side there, continue frontal assaults on Ukrainian positions in the Donbas, like the center offensive here, or the contact points is better to call it, particularly just south of Bakhmut. However, in follow-up reports to that, the progress for the Russian Wagner group, or the units there, is very minimal and very costly so far. So, cost of Wagner infantrymen units, that is to say. Oh, and just lastly, in the Donbas, particularly in the Luhansk Oblast there, we have unconfirmed rumors at this point, but there's a lot of news online about this, that a train of newly mobilized Russian soldiers was destroyed in Luhansk, which is, if I zoom out, this region there, as well as some continued strikes on supply lines in the region there as well. Now, see the white line here? In fact, if you zoom out, these are really the train supply lines, for instance. So Ukraine has probably very well strategically aligned with its objectives and goals to have the idea of taking out these Donbas train lines, for instance, supply lines. Then we'll move across on the map and have a look at the Dnipropetrovsk region there. So Nikopol, always getting hammered by the south side, the Russian-occupied south side of the Dnipro River there. And we have a photo here of a cluster of ammunition falling on the Nikopol region. Now, these have the potential to be very explosive over larger areas, and therefore the potential to be significantly damaging to regions, not the least of which is the civilians in those regions. Civilians can be particularly susceptible to these, and many deaths can occur, and which makes them effectively banned to use. But we can see Russia's pulling them out of the stockpiles and using them anyway. That's just what Russia likes to do. Then we'll move across to the Kherson region here, the Kherson Oblast, where Ukraine's military destroyed a Russian military barge near Kherson. So that's actually, there's Kherson, the city in the Kherson Oblast, and the barge is around here near the Antonivsky Bridge. Of course, Russia wants to use these barges to get across to the north side, but Ukraine is effectively not letting them. So we've got a railway bridge and a regular bridge here, effectively all taken out. We've got a bridge a lot higher up there, the dam bridge, and that is not usable either. So Russia is hard-pressed for options or solutions to supply the north lines and retreat to the south as well. But amongst two regions on the Kherson almost front line, really, I've got Kherson the city and Berislav up here. There it is. Between these two locations, the Ukrainian Operational Command South said that they destroyed 4 Russian ammunition depots, as well as 6 tanks, 5 howitzers, and 3 Pantsir missile systems, which is pretty incredible there. This is just in this little region of the whole map, so very good. And then we'll move across just lastly here to Odessa, where Ukrainian air defenses shot down 3 kamikaze drones, all 3 that were sent from the Russian side there. So these kamikaze drones all on their way to Odessa, and they've been confirmed as the Iranian purchased Shahed 136s. So in this region alone, this little spot here, that makes 5 losses of these these Russian or these Iranian-bought Russian drones in the last 48 hours. 5 in the past 48 hours. So they do seem particularly susceptible to Ukrainian air defenses, whether they're anti-air guns or anti-air warfare guns, or electronic warfare on the Ukrainian side, all sorts of things. So that's good to see. It is said that Russia received 200 or 300. The exact figures aren't confirmed, but at least 50 of them have been downed now in the last, since in all of September when they got them. Now I'll just move across lastly to the news for the day, a bit of a quicker video. So we have Lukashenko of Belarus, who met President Putin of Russia in Sochi in Russia there in the last 24 hours, where they probably both discussed options on how to stop becoming seen as pariahs on the international stage and how to stop having economic sanctions on both of their countries due to the war in Ukraine. However, I doubt at this juncture they were able to brainstorm and come up with the idea of ceasing military hostilities and paying war reparations to Ukraine for all the destruction they've caused. So they probably had to talk about other things. But what a couple of out-of-touch jokers these two are with respect to their the civilians in their own regions. Now, in other news, Lithuania delivers 50 M113 infantry vehicles to Ukraine, which is quite good, as these guys are a Baltic country that is only about 100 kilometers or about 60 miles from the Russian border, but it doesn't actually border with it. Either way, very ballsy move. Good on you, Lithuania. And next up in news, we've got some long lines stretching, highway lines for cars for many, many miles on the Russian-Georgian border, as you can see with this video. Now, it's probably just a question of time before Russia closes the borders. There's lots of photos, footage of all different types here regarding this one, but the whole point of it is reservist Russian men between the ages of 18 and 50. Many of them are just trying to cross the border, not just the Georgian border, the Finland border, taking flights to Istanbul, so Turkey, going to Kazakhstan. There's plenty of stories going on about this, but I just enjoyed the video of this one with that long, it's almost like the convoy train in March when Russia was attempting to take Kiev. Now, I've got to quickly say here, I believe what's happening here is this is military corruption related at its source. And let me try to explain this. So I've done some keen investigation on this and found that corruption within the Russian military, which I've mentioned a lot in the past, it actually includes, well, prior to the war, military corruption, had even led to men falsely assigned to the military but never actually served due to bribes, thereby allowing military officers, so Russian military officers, to collect their pay from both the state but also from the civilian bribes as well, naturally. So it makes sense that conscripts or to be conscripted Russian reservists in the military, they may have actually never done any service and they bribed their way out of it. Which means, and this is probably very true, a rare few that actually get to the front lines, at least a rare few, may have never even picked up a military weapon before. Because we're already getting conscripts, so reservist conscripts, effectively said to be going to the front lines as we speak at the time of this recording. Not even a week after Russian President Vladimir Putin signed the decree into law about the partial military mobilization, particularly looking at getting reservists to go to the front line. So that's scary. That's hugely scary. We've already got these reservists going into the war zones as we speak, and some of them may not be able to run for the borders for whatever reason and be on the front line with a gun and a cheap helmet and just don't know at all what to do. We're talking zero training. That's just hugely scary to me. I'm not saying it's the norm, but it's certainly at least going to happen a handful of times. Very unprepared, and they're dealing with the Ukrainian forces, which are NATO technologied up more and more every day. Very skilled, very trained, and a lot of experience, and a lot more morale than the Russian soldiers as well. So, long story short, cannon fodder. Speaking of all that, in a little bit of weather news, where snow usually starts in a little bit earlier in Ukraine, from early to mid-October, and temperatures start to drop below 0 degrees Celsius, that is, at night in many parts. Meanwhile, Ukrainians are getting very appropriately and well equipped for this. Meanwhile, Russia has problems equipping their forces even before the recent mobilization decree that Putin enacted. Now Russia has to equip an additional, on top of what they've already got, 300,000 soldiers for winter. So this is a problem that I haven't seen mentioned that much, but the mobilization can take 1 to 3 months, even longer. It would be starting, a lot of those soldiers would be getting into the Ukrainian front lines in the dead of winter. And that's, again, I actually feel sorry for some of these Russian soldiers. That's hugely devastating. And some Russians, I guarantee, I'll probably show an excerpt of me talking right now in a future video, but I guarantee some Russians, I believe, will rather surrender instead of freeze to death. So let's say when they're in their freezing temperature trenches, ill-equipped, with not useful clothing, attire, they will actually get a mobile text via Ukrainian cellular tower infrastructure saying, "Surrender to warmth and comfort," quote unquote. And I know that sounds quite made up, but Russian soldiers on the front line are already getting texts saying, "Choose life instead of death. Call this number to surrender and we'll treat you well. We'll show you exactly how. We'll keep your privacy and we'll get you home back to Russia." So winter is a big deal for Russia, and I don't think they can handle it that well. And just a bit of a light or a funny to round the day off. So this is a quick photo of a toilet in one of the recently liberated settlements in Kharkiv, or rather a toilet room. Who would have thought that this was the greatest treasure of the occupier, the Russian occupier? I'm sorry. So inevitably I had to look this up. The stats on this, what on earth is going on. So about 20 to 25% of the Russian population don't have indoor toilets and also don't have indoor plumbing. Instead, they have outhouses of some description. They have outhouses basically of some description. Now, I don't know this for sure, but these toilet thieves are likely to be from the eastern regions of Russia, what is called, quote unquote, the poorer or the lower socio-economic regions, I suppose. But the toilets won't go inside their homes because of the lack of indoor plumbing. I mean, they can sit in it on the inside of their homes if they want, but they don't. It's not going to flush. They don't. So I'm so sorry. They don't. They won't be able to use it without making a mess. I'm so sorry. Continue. But possibly, I theorize, these ceramic, porcelain achievements of humanity will instead go into these thieves' outhouses, where they otherwise may just have a hole in the ground. Now, I'm sure someone will do a whole documentary on this bizarre occurrence one day, and I really hope that it won't be me. All right, I'm gonna call it there, guys. Sorry. I'm having a bit too much with that funny. That's probably the funniest funny. And it's just mostly talking with one photo today. I've got plenty of footage though, I suppose. So thanks for watching, guys. Please leave a comment, subscribe, hit that like button, and I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers.